Disaster preparedness. No, I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you all, especially groups like this. There's a sense of duty within your neighborhood, but for me, I want to also understand that there's a sense of responsibility for your families. So I'd like to come and do these talks to really kind of get you thinking of, preparing your home, preparing your family so that you can also come and help us if we ever need it. So emergency management, have any of you ever heard of us? Thank God, one person. All right, good. No, that's usually the first thing I get is, so what is it that you all do? Well, we manage emergencies. It's the easiest definition, right? No, it's a little bit more complicated than that. We really like to take a whole community approach to all hazards planning for emergencies, really. And all that means is anything and everything you can think of, from natural to man-made to technological. Those are more of your hazardous material spills that you have on the expressways. If anybody's ever traveled up and down 75 in their life, you always know something's overturned somewhere. To terrorism. And really when you speak of terrorism, we're speaking about lone wolves. Especially nowadays, what we're seeing is the internet is recruiting. So it's really more of an education portion of that. So those are the sort of things we're talking about. We're not talking about, hopefully not talking about another 9/11 event. But as you see Cincinnati being in the national news and international news for good things, this spring or this summer we'll have the NAACP convention at the same time as the Republican National Convention, at the same time as the Maccabees games in Columbus. So Ohio's going to have a lot of attention focused on it in the month of July. So really we take these things seriously. And we do have a great fusion center here in the region that helps emergency management and our first responders in intelligence gathering and information that we can then push out to groups like you. But really I kind of wanted to take a moment because we've entered severe weather season. We're out of winter. I never thought I was going to say that, but it's May and it's not 45 degrees yet. So, so I want to take a minute and talk about severe storms, but really I want to talk about that in terms of our 4 phases of emergency management. So really we look at this as mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery, and how that translates to your own lives as well. So mitigation, what do you do to lessen the effects of a disaster? You stock up on water, you exercise your emergency response plans that you have in your homes, right? Fire drills, tornado drills, you download weather apps, you watch the weather on the news, you pay attention to that kind of thing. Please shake your heads. Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. So you mitigate the effects of a disaster on you. Same thing that we do here in Hamilton County. We have what they call an all hazards mitigation plan. And really all that looks at is any and all natural hazards that could affect this area. Windstorms, floods, tornadoes, landslides, if you can believe it, earthquakes, things like that, and how we can mitigate that. So if anybody's ever seen big retaining walls, maybe where there were once landslides, or perhaps we buy up property and just make it a big park in areas that used to flood, things like that. Those are mitigation actions that we use. Putting on those really strong wind, hurricane grade style shingles on your roofs, especially after Hurricane Ike, going out and buying a generator after Hurricane Ike. I discovered I had a gas hot water heater after Hurricane Ike, thank God. So, those kind of things to help mitigate. Preparedness. Now this is our bread and butter. This is probably what I spent 99% of our time doing. The other 1% being what we're most known for in our Emergency Operations Center in Lower Price Hill. The big regional, it's just like you see in the disaster movies. There's big screens and computers and telephones and things like that. Doesn't really get used all that often, thankfully.
I've been there.
Yes. It is very cool. It is very cool. And thankfully, we've never had to open it for an actual emergency, mostly for pre-planned events and trainings. But it's just out of a disaster movie. So really, preparedness is what I'm talking about, the 72-hour kit. And why do we say 72 hours? It's not because these guys can't get to you or the fire can't get to you. It's that they have to prioritize. And really, in a disaster, what you see, anywhere from a small little localized flood to a Joplin-type event is you look within your neighborhood, which is why I'm so pleased to see such a great turnout with the citizens in the Neighborhood Watch, because you all turn to each other. You go and check on each other, you go and help each other. We were just having a conversation after Ike. Everybody kind of came out and grilled all the food that was going to go bad. Neighborhoods tend to turn inwards to each other, and that's really where that 72-hour kit comes from as well. Because in the meantime, we're clearing roads, we're getting people to hospitals, we're trying to restore power to critical facilities. That's really, so we rely heavily on you all to help us, because if you can take care of yourselves, that really relieves a lot of pressure off of us. And so in the 72-hour kits, what do we have? You got your batteries, your flashlights, all of your usual stuff, your food. But what about your important documents? What about your insurance papers? How many of you have looked at your insurance in a while? This is something that we're seeing a lot of lessons learned from some of the other disasters is people, have you all seen that commercial? You think you're covered for this, but you're really covered for that? There's so much truth to that. Because people think, oh, well, I have insurance, I'm good. Well, what we're seeing after Sandy in New York City is they've redesigned the floodplains there. And now a lot of people that didn't have to have flood insurance now have to get flood insurance. And flood insurance is not cheap. It's very expensive. When they decommissioned the Lunken levee out at the airport, all those homes are now required to get flood insurance. So it's a very expensive, good insurance, but it can be very expensive for a homeowner, especially on a home, middle-class family. It adds a bit of a strain. So I always encourage people to, one, talk to your insurance agent to find out what you're covered for, and two, know where your insurance papers are, make copies electronically if possible, put them on those little flash drives, wills, bank account statements, passwords, photos, of pets, of cars, of, jewelry, of things of value to you, because photos are very helpful. And then you download all of that onto a flash drive, and then I want you to send it away, like 50 miles away at least. Don't send it to me. I'm very flattered, but I cannot be in charge of all of that. That's a lot of pressure. Send it away, send it somewhere safe. Well, again, what we're seeing is when you enter what we call the recovery phase, whether you're in a fender bender or a major disaster, it jostles you mentally. It takes you a minute to kind of get right. And so here you are, you've just lost everything, you have everything but the clothes on your back, and somebody's asking you who your insurance carrier is. You don't know where your next meal is, you don't know where you're going to be sleeping. The last thing you can think about is any of these important documents. And again, coming out of Sandy, we saw a lot of stories of people whose houses were literally in the Atlantic Ocean with all of their stuff, but they couldn't get any assistance because all of their important documents were out in the middle of the ocean. So we really strongly encourage that kind of redundancy. And then do it for your neighbors as well, Any family members, I strongly encourage you all to do that, especially for those that have family members, maybe you're taking care of parents, or you have what we call access and functional needs, within your family. So that's basically anybody that can't do for themselves during an emergency, which is pretty much anybody. But in this case, they're talking about children, elderly, physical disabilities, maybe temporary, maybe they've had knee surgery and they can't get around all that much. So what extra care do you need to think about for them? Medications, durable medical equipment, things of that nature, toys. I've never thought about any of this stuff, but I've got to in about 8 weeks. So, things like that you wouldn't think of normally. You kind of grab up your food and you'd go. But kids need to be entertained, I'm learning. So sheltering items, things like that. Now, Cincinnati's a little unique. We never have had to shelter anywhere. Really what you're looking for are more reception centers where you can go and charge your cell phone. We don't have sort of those widespread hurricane-type disasters. Everybody's been able to, again, find a neighbor or a family member to go stay with. But we do encourage you to think, what do I need in those 72 hours if I had to shelter? Just in case. And then there's the response. So, You all have your preparedness plan, you've mitigated for anything, but you still have to respond to a tornado or a flood. How are you going to evacuate? Where are you going to go? And then how are you going to communicate that you're okay? Those are the big three. Those are the big three that as a county we worry about. So for yourselves, I would also encourage you all to think about, your evacuation plans. What if your car's gone? What if what if your neighbor who you were going to stay with is no longer available? They left, maybe. Sheltering, communications, cell phones. Everybody thinks, oh, I just got a cell phone. What if cell phone towers are down? I'm looking at my ham radio guy. And you can't all call him. That's not fair. Social media is actually really big in this realm. The Red Cross has a phenomenal app that they cover floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, and I really enjoy their tornado one. They have an I am safe component, so it'll hit your email, your Twitter, and your Facebook page, and you can type a little message like, I'm okay, I'm here at so-and-so's house, or I'm at this shelter, we're okay, and it'll shoot out to everybody, and so your loved ones will know where you are. I mean, you saw it after 9/11, if anybody tried to use a phone down here, phone lines were jammed, because everybody's calling. Text messages get through a lot easier, so if anybody texts, I highly recommend it. You can always communicate with your family that way. Then there's the recovery phase, or as we call it, finding the new normal. And this is, to me, one of the most important phases. There's an argument for all three, but with recovery, having planned enough, recovery is a very smooth process. And we're seeing this with kids and with adults as well. If you make those plans, if you talk these plans out, if you practice these plans, you develop what you call muscle memory. It takes 8,000 repetitions for muscle memory to develop. Now, I don't expect you all to do 8,000 tornado drills or fire drills. I would encourage that, but I don't expect it. But it gives you an idea. It's why we do it in school every year. It's why I encourage offices to do it. It's why we sound the sirens on the first Wednesday of the month at what time? And what do you do when you hear the sirens? No, you don't. You run to the window and look out. Don't lie. Oh, it is raining. I'm kidding. No, but it's why you immediately get information. So it's why we do these things, so that we practice, that it becomes repetitive, because once it happens, everything you know goes right out your head, and your muscles take over and direct you where to go. Not all of us become Chuck Norris when the emergency happens. In fact, none of us become Chuck Norris when the emergency happens. You rise to the level of your training, which is why I really love these groups, because this is part of the training. This is part of the thinking. Tornado sirens, formerly known as tornado sirens. Now I'd like to shift a little bit and discuss severe weather, because they're not just for tornadoes. In fact, they're outdoor warning sirens. And the purpose of them is to inform you that something is happening. Go seek information. There are 188 sirens in Hamilton County. And you all are in Zone 3. We have the county divided up into zones. I looked before I left, but I didn't look to see which siren is the closest. But right there, thank you. So back in 2011, if anybody recalls, 2010 was a rather particular rainy summer, and there was a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings. And back then, the sirens went off for every severe thunderstorm warning. And if you lived near one of those, like I did at that time, it sounded like it was going off in your bedroom at 3 a.m. The purpose being to get up, seek information. Well, after about the 4th or 5th time that it was just a thunderstorm warning, what do you think people did? Well, they just quit, yeah. Complete opposite of what we were trying to accomplish. So in 2011, we came back, we all got together within the region, not just within Hamilton County, and said, all right, that didn't work, that completely backfired. So we have redeveloped the siren policy. They only go off for tornado warnings, severe hazardous material spills. So if anybody remembers the styrene leak down near Lunken Airport, probably 2008, 8 with something like that, that would have necessitated setting off the alarms, but not your usual diesel spills. And then other. And we say other because we had some storms roll through last year for the All-Star game. We also had a lot of people from out of town crammed downtown that had no idea where they were, where to go, or how to get there, and how do you notify them that there is some severe weather, like straight line winds, pretty nasty stuff coming our way. Well, there's 3 sirens right along the river there, right by the stadiums. Those 3 sirens, you also have the ability to talk to them. They have like a little radio. So we set those 3 sirens off, just said, hey, go seek shelter. There's just a storm rolling through. It's not a tornado, but please seek shelter. So they all filed in to the banks and to the Underground Railroad Museum, and they all stood in front of the Underground Railroad Museum in that giant glass wall and watched the storm roll through. And we thought, well, at least they're inside. We'll work on the debris part next. Baby steps, right? No incidents, right? Nope. I mean, that was the quietest, best event we could have ever asked for. Everybody filed out, went to the game, and it was great. So that's the updated siren policy. So it's why you won't hear it. So if you do hear it, I should say, not on the first Wednesday of the month at noon, what are you going to do? Seek information. Well, I'll take seek shelter too. I'll take either one. But we do plan on setting it off for more than just weather. Now, finally, I wanted to take just a few minutes and talk tornadoes, because that's kind of a big deal around here. We do get some. You don't hear about them that often, but I will say in the last 63 years, we've had 348 tornadoes in the region. It's a lot. Probably the most recent one, 2012 in Moscow, Ohio, practically wiped out a village. That was an EF3. We just had some up in Montgomery County a few months ago. That was just an EF0. Thankfully, nobody was even injured, but it did affect a lot of the barns and homes and things like that. Just a few things to think about. The United States has the most violent tornadoes. Europe, for some reason, doesn't really follow them, or they don't really track them the way they do. We average about 1,200 tornadoes a year. Great Britain, about 60. Now, granted, they're a little further north, so it's not always as warm. We've recently been brought under the Tornado Alley umbrella, yay. So has most of Arkansas and Illinois and Indiana and Tennessee and Florida and Mississippi and Alabama and all of that. If you remember, it used to just be the plains. It used to just be the Kansas-Oklahoma corridor right there. What do you think the most popular tornado is? EF0 to EF5. 2, 3, 5. That's what I like to hear. EF0, EF1 accounts for about 95 of your tornadoes. Your EF5s account for 0.1%. Why? Because they are the most violent, and so therefore they're the ones that get the most press. But we do see those EF0, EF1s. Now, I'm not saying that that's anything not to go seek shelter for. You're still talking 90 to 110 mile an hour winds. These are very powerful. And in fact, Kentucky and Ohio have some of the most violent tornadoes, if you can believe it. There's different rankings, biggest, scariest, all of that kind of stuff. But we tend to have the more violent ones just based on our weather patterns. Great. If any of you get a chance to watch radar, I swear that there's a bubble over Hamilton County sometimes, but that's not always the case. But to think about, I also would encourage you, if you have not done the weather spotter training. Is anybody, yeah, okay, all right. It's my little gold star right over there, I know. But I would encourage you all to do the weather spotter training as well. It's put on for free by the National Weather Service. In Hamilton County, usually tries to bring 2 or 3. This year we were able to do 2, and they're usually in the February, March range, and we try to advertise them as well. But this is a great class if you're interested in learning more, and for a neighborhood watch, and Citizens on Patrol, I would definitely encourage you all to take, because it really kind of gives you a quick tutorial on weather and rotating and when to call the weather service and what you should be looking for. And even if you don't want to become a spotter, an official spotter, it does give you a little bit more information on weather patterns and what to look for and when to seek shelter and things like that. So it's a great learning opportunity for you all to help your neighborhoods out for sure. And with that, I finally would like to end with how you all can receive notifications and warnings. We do not try to replace communication methods. We only try to enhance them. And lately, we've had a big push with social media. That seems to be pretty popular to be able to get those quick messages out. We do have an app. For those of you that have smartphones, it's free. And you can, follow us on social media. You can get weather and traffic information and things like that. We also have a free reverse 911 system you can get through our website called Nixle. You just go in and put in your cell phone number, and we can then push out information that way. Hamilton County, Ohio, EMA.org is our website. You can also get more information on our warning sirens, preparedness plans, our own county planning, things like that, and then any trainings coming up. I don't know if anybody knows, but we are able to bring a lot of training to this region on various topics, and it is free and it is open to everybody. And that is also on our website. And in fact, we have one coming up next Friday or tomorrow, I believe, on caregiving for senior citizens during emergencies. So we really are planning for the needs of children. So we really try to do a large variety of different trainings, shelter management, things like that. So if there's something that you see on that website that you're interested in, by all means, I would encourage you to sign up as well. With that, if you have any questions, you're always welcome to contact us, and I really appreciate this time. Am I okay on time? Oh, I have a question, yes.
You said you're important papers, insurance and stuff to send them
On a flash drive.
So you don't recommend like a safety deposit box for work or?
Both, yes.
That's okay?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it's in a safe that can sit still, I highly recommend it. That's why I also recommend sending it away. That way you know that if you can't find it, or if it's in West Virginia, you know where you can access it. But I, put pictures on there, social security numbers, and send it to somebody you trust. No, not the Nigerian prince that I'm still waiting to contact me. So, sure.
I belong to the Hamilton County, the medical reserves.
Oh, yeah, okay, go.
And it sounds kind of like you're connected, because that's how I've been to the base.
Yes.
But are you connected with the pods, and do you help with all that, or? That's
a good question. So there's two types of pods, and the Medical Reserve Corps is a great, that's another great volunteer opportunity, because you don't have to be a medical person to join the MRC. We rely, there's 9 of us in our office, and we have 0 resources because we give it all to these fine gentlemen because they know what to do with it. So we rely heavily on our first responders as well as our voluntary organizations like the MRC. So there's 2 types of pods. The first pod you all probably remember from the H1N1 scare. That's where you would go in to get your flu shot and you go around. Those are medical pods. Those are really run by the health departments. We do assist in helping to find areas to hold those pods, helping to bring in the medicine from the health department, helping to store it. We call these guys to secure it, that kind of thing. We also have a commodities pod. So if we had a tornado come through, or knock on wood, we had a water crisis, we're not going to, we would hold pods for water and food. So we call those a commodity pod. So that's basically it's the same idea where you drive in, you pick up your pallet of water, and you drive off. So
those pods right now are in Finneytown. That's where I just went.
Yeah.
And we're going to start rejoin where we go to get our classes and learn about the pods. But I was wondering about
you should encourage some of these people to join that, because that's a great. I mean.
I'd kind of like to get closer though. Because this is more for that community. Like Forest Park and Green Hills.
They don't, yeah. Much like shelters, we try not to advertise a lot of that because you don't want, we want to tell you where to go. But if you're interested, contact the health department, let them know, Yeah. But that's another thing, pods, you don't have to be really specialized to be able to volunteer. We need bodies. And to help with that, with intake forms and just greeting people and, walking them through things like that. I mean, there's always opportunities to help us out. Exercises, we train yearly, anywhere from just a tabletop exercise where we sit around and talk about an issue to a full-scale exercise, which is where everybody comes out, lights and sirens, and we send people to the hospital and things like that. So we're always looking for people to help volunteer. So there's lots of ways to still get involved in the community as well.
Can you call the Hamilton County's health department? They can put you in the young lady there.
Yes.
But you call if you're interested in assisting.
Well, I belong.
She's, yeah.
They connected me with North College Hill. They said that was the closest. Okay.
I don't know all the health department pods.
I do.
So, and I'll plug amateur radio too, because that's another great way to get involved. And especially at our Regional Operations Center, we have a room for ham radio folks. And that's, you talk about cell towers going down, I'm calling them. So we can plant them in hospitals and first responders, and they can connect us with everyone. They can talk to anybody. So
We had 5 guys on last weekend.
yeah, great. Yeah, no, I'd connect with him as well. So thank you all very much. And I have a bunch of information over there. I encourage you all to take it. I'm sorry, it's not fancy, but it's what I do. So, but thank you all for the time, and I really enjoyed this. Thank you.